That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Monica, the third film directed by Andrea Pallaoro, which premiered in competition at the 2022 Venice Film Festival. It is being released courtesy of IFC Films on May 12th, 2023.
Do you know Andrea's other films?
Yes, Medeas, and then I'm a huge fan of 2017's Hannah, which starred Charlotte Rampling and won her Volpe Cup for Best Actress at the Venice Film Festival. Monica is meant to be the second part of a thematic trilogy about isolated, detached women dealing with tragic circumstances.
Well, I thought this movie was excellent.
I agree.
The basic story, the intimate portrait of a woman who returns home to care for her dying mother, a delicate and, I shouldn't read the rest of that. Anyway, but it's basically that. So Trace Lysette,
Lysette, I think.
Trace Lysette plays a woman who is estranged from her family. And one day she gets a call from someone saying, girl, you need to bring your ass back home. Your mom's not doing well. So she goes. And we find out the reason she's estranged from her family, which consists of her mother, her father's dead, her brother, and then her brother's wife and 3 kids. The mother's sick. We find out she's estranged because when she came out as trans, the mom basically was like, not in my house. And so basically kicked her out. So the bulk of the movie is her. So the mom doesn't know that this person who's in her house named Monica is her child. She thinks it's like another caregiver because she already has a caregiver, but her son and the daughter-in-law, they just don't have the bandwidth to help her as much as she needs. So they're saying Monica's here. And we find out that it is the sister-in-law,
Laura, Emily Browning,
who thought that, we need to include Monica. And the mom is played by Patricia Clarkson.
Eugenia.
There is so much about this movie I liked, and I really loved the approach.
It's very complex and very carefully and subtly rendered.
Yeah.
It's full of pregnant pauses and double meanings in almost every passage of dialogue and exchange, which I think is, and watching it a second time, I think I picked up on even more. I think it's really impressive.
Yeah, there are a lot of little things. So to start, I think the performances from everyone are really good. I think Trace Lysette is very, she just has great screen presence.
She does.
And it's a somber performance for most of it, which we can get into. But I really liked her on screen. But I liked everyone. I really liked the sister-in-law.
Emily Browning. Yep.
What were you going to say?
No. Patricia Clarkson, Adriana Barraza, who plays Leticia. And also Paul is played by Joshua Close.
So some of the little things, when Monica first meets her brother's children, the son, Brody, he's playing with some puppies, and they're still, they're puppies, they're babies. So Monica asks, what are their names? And then the little kid says, well, they don't have names yet.
They're still babies.
Still babies. And I just thought, I don't know, that to me that represented how kids understand more than we think. And that if you just tell them what's happening, they will process it because they don't have all the extra baggage and biases.
And also that, to me, what we do to human children is by placing those gender expectations upon them when we name, they haven't grown old, we haven't grown enough to know what we want to be yet, but everybody else is telling us what we need to be is what, and how the film is framed, because it's got this, this boxy aspect ratio, which literally Monica is in a box the whole time, is how it reads to me.
So when Monica first gets to the house with the puppies and she's talking to her sister-in-law, then she goes, okay, well, let's go to your mom's house. And she explains to her, I haven't told her anything. I didn't think it was my place. I wanted you to do it in your way. But as they're driving, it's the sister-in-law with the kids in the car and then Monica following in her own car. And then we see the kids looking at her, which I thought was also a really good scene. They know something. But, kids know.
There's a reason we haven't met Aunt Monica yet, for a reason.
Yeah. Well, they don't know she's Aunt Monica, but it's they know that there's something.
She says it almost, I think right after that scene, she's referred to as that.
So I really loved how the film's, I just think it's I loved how it was written and directed because we see two sides of Monica. When she's around her family, she's very guarded and quiet. But then there's another side to her because we see she's staying at her mom's house and we see her doing like, because I believe she's a sex worker. We see her giving someone a massage early on before she leaves. We see her at her mom's house doing like a live like sex cam show. So I think there's a really, that balance felt very authentic. And I felt like I could relate to that. I think a lot of queer and trans people can relate to having to be two different people.
Well, how we have to diminish ourselves when we return to a space that was toxic for us.
Because when we see her being more alive, like when she's getting ready to go on like a date and she's playing music and dancing, or how she's a little more animated during her, you know, live cam show versus when she's around her family. It just all made a lot of sense.
And also, there's a lot of the film, the subtext is about living out loud, I think, because we get a really good scene where the brother shows Monica cell phone footage of this. Mom was talking about you and I want you to see this. And she relates a story that I thought was very touching about when her two boys were little, and refers to Monica previously as a child that was a little devil who was noisy all the time.
I also thought that was such an excellent technique to provide us with some backstory.
Yes.
Like literally the brother showing his sister like footage of their mom talking about, like, it felt very clever.
And the brother not realizing how he's treating Brody as a kid who's also wants to be noisy and playful and loud. He wants to sing, which is another aspect of it. But I like all the scenes where Monica is being what I assume to be more her authentic self, is alone in her car in a state of transition, going from one place to another. And that's when we get, you know, Pallaoro's very distinct choice in music, because you get some Italian pop in there, Vitalik. Monica's wearing a Cocteau Twins t-shirt. But I think all of those things are just giving us really subtle clues into reading this person and how they're feeling.
Well, because we also get her calling her ex a number of times because she still has feelings for this person and this person's ignoring her.
And what I appreciate about that too is like you see those behaviors and like you want to be like, girl, don't do that. Like just like this man is clearly over you. Don't do this to yourself. But when we learn how her mother abandoned her, it's like that all makes sense to me, how she's having a hard time letting go of this person that won't even talk to her anymore. And the point where she first sees Patricia Clarkson, her mom doesn't recognize her, and when she goes into the bathroom and sobs and tries to call him, that part really bothered me. And there are a lot of instances with mirrors that I really liked. And my favorite shot of the film, which I don't know if it's an homage to Wim Wenders' Paris, Texas, with Nastasia Kinski and Harry Dean Stanton, but there's a scene where Monica is putting lipstick on Patricia Clarkson and she holds up a compact mirror and it's framed within her face. I really love that.
Yeah, that would make a really good poster. So Monica sets up a date with a guy, and based on the conversation they're having, it sounds like she was clear that she's trans. And she makes her way to the bar, and it is clear that it was quite a trip for her to go out there. And the guy stands her up. So she's upset. She has a moment where she calls her ex again. She calls the guy upset. Then she ends up hooking up with someone at the bar, having sex in his van. And then when she gets home, she's upset and she lays down with her mother.
Her car breaks down on the way home.
Oh, then, yeah, I mean, even the scene keeps getting better because her car breaks down and then she just loses it. Like, we see her screaming.
Well, because even you said, like, as soon as she's in that bar, you're like, is she going to get beat up? And when the car breaks down, we're like, oh, God, what's going to happen? How's she going to get home?
Well, so I'm leading up to this thought. So then when she gets home, she's upset and probably a little drunk, and she ends up laying in bed with her mom. And something that I liked about this film so much is that, because oftentimes stories revolving around queer and trans people in this realm, it's always about like, how are they going to come out and their reaction. In this film, it's almost like through osmosis that everyone sort of understands who's what. And the mom, we never get a sense of when Monica's mother knew that was her daughter. But the scene after the club or the bar, the hooking up, and she's laying in bed with her mom, she lays in bed, like she falls asleep all night. And when she wakes in the morning, we see that Monica's still asleep, but Patricia is awake with her eyes open. And then the woman who's playing the caregiver,
Adriana Barraza?
She walks in and it's like, oh, excuse
battle.
me, but it wakes up Monica. So then Monica leaves the room and we see the mom crying. So I really like that it was never explicitly said, like, I'm your child, I'm a trans woman now. Because I feel like, while yes, for a lot of queer and trans people, that is how they come out, a lot of us don't necessarily do that. It's just kind of like through little things over time, it's understood, and that's how people are comfortable.
And we don't get that moment.
Right.
There's rarely, I think, in life where, you get that moment. And also, her mom's dying and losing her mind. And so...
Right, yeah. We didn't even mention that Patricia Clarkson's character, her ailment is like she's having neurological issues.
And another scene I found very touching is because Monica's also under the ruse of being a caretaker, kind of, but she's bathing her mother, and they both kind of know what each other knows now. And Patricia Clarkson is touching Monica's face.
Yeah,
really
acknowledging that she sees her, and I thought that was really sweet. But before that happens, Monica, I think, is frustrated with the situation, and that, like, I'm assuming, not clear to her, or she's upset that her mom doesn't recognize her. So she leaves.
Yeah.
She says, I'm leaving. And takes a cab to go get her car because the car had broken down. And then as she's driving, she starts crying.
Listening to common people. Mm-hmm.
And decides to return home. And that's when things because the mom had already figured out who this person was. Mm-hmm. I thought that worked really well.
And she just walks back up. They're coming back from some medical appointment, and they're just like, hey...
But I feel like that's how family works sometimes, or even like good friends who you like lose contact with, and it's just sometimes you just have to ignore all the in between and just start from scratch. Not from scratch, but start where you are, from where you are.
I also liked Monica's watching the brother and sister play, and they're like reenacting giving birth. And the Brody, the little boy, is the one giving the birth, and he names the baby Monica.
Yeah, that was a cute scene, and also I think it's supposed to represent that maybe the little boy, might end up being queer or something. He's different.
We're told that a couple times, because even Paul, the brother, tells Monica, like, "Oh, Brody reminds me of you."
Right, like maybe he's a little gay boy or. So, and then he wants to perform the Star Spangled Banner at like a little talent show at school. And he does read as a little effeminate, and it's not explicitly said, but it seems like maybe Paul's having a hard time with how his son is presenting.
And it's causing conflict in his marriage.
And it's causing conflict, but then we see earlier on in the film that Monica shows little Brody that she carries like a musical box. It almost looks, I think it's a pill. She uses it as a pill box. And then in the end, when Brody is about to go perform his little song, she gives him the little box to say, like, this will protect you, and I'm giving it to you. And then we hear the little boy sing his song and Monica looking at him. And then the film ends. But yeah, I really, it was just a very beautiful movie and very subtle. I like that there are no hard lines, because I feel like that's how family is. Like you just kind of just go. You got to go with it, and you got to forget. And
you like forget. I don't know. Like forgiveness is such a hard. The reconciliation is just never how you predict it's going to be, and I really do appreciate the subtlety of this film. And if Hannah, and if you haven't seen Hannah, I highly recommend it. But that's about the presence of an absence, like a woman whose husband goes to jail and she's left to fend for herself. And this is kind of like in this thematic vein of an absence returning.
Yeah.
And how we're all navigating over this. It's just such a weird thing if you've ever had to go through an experience where you estrange yourself or you were estranged from your family. It's such an odd disconnection, and I think that, and I don't know if Pallaoro himself or his regular screenwriter Orlando Torrado, I don't know if they developed this with anybody in mind, but I don't know, it just feels very real and authentic.
What would you give this movie?
I think it's deserving of a 4 out of 5.
I would give it 4 out of 5 as well. Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.